speaking Spanish rather fluently to the staff that I had out on a job site. And I said, wow, you really speak good English, you know. Because he looks like a white man, just like myself. And he goes, well,
stop this right here.
My mother was...
For a minute, by God. Oh, man, I'm slow. Get your shit together, mister. What's wrong with you, by God? Oh, let's see here. Crane. I gotta get myself together here for just a second. So give me 5 minutes. Yeah.
If you have to reach out and get people to turn in stuff and threats and stuff that they haven't already done yet, dumbass, that's not be that much of a threat. I'm not stupid enough to leave the federal right to say my freedom of speech for stupid bit. Just like you talking about all that petty in there. I have a fucking right to say whatever I want. They got nothing better to do. So I'm going to be in that group. So you can take this over all everything your fucking group there. You fucking old sorry ass bitch, you have a group. Say whatever you want about somebody. You are over there bullying me. I give you a fucking chance to do that shit. You go ahead and call real fucking first get started. Look which side you join this. You can be able to say anything you want about me, my family, and all that other. Oh my God, I ain't friendly, stupid, stinking ass bitch. I'm not that stupid. If you quit running your dick sucker about me, then I will quit messing with you. And that's the way it works. That's the way it's going to work.
This is for the cab you have to drive and no money at all. This is for why I wasn't born like my brother, handsome and tall. This is for politicians who are bored of believing war. This, yeah, it's for me, that's what I'm for. This is for discrimination and egotism. This is for you. This is for whoever taught you how to kiss and designed you. That one's for where you have to live. This one's for the rich, not all of them, just the greedy. The ones that don't know how to give. 70 salmon and tourists at Disneyland. And this one, oh yeah, that's the one. That's for the creator of man. This is for the sun. Tourists at Disneyland. This is for the ocean, the sea, the shore. This is for, and that's for you. That's who that one's for. This is for the world, so beautifully complex. This one's for love, without seconds. This is for the wind that blows, no matter how fast or slow. Not knowing where I'm going, this galaxy's better. It's not having a place to go. Now I know.
It's been on Justice for Darby today on Facebook. Join group. Right there. Click that join group right there. Come join us for the truth. This is where the facts are on the case of Justice for Darby and Routier on Facebook.
Oh. Wow. One at a time. One at a time, by God. So let's just see. Let's finish up where I was on Ridge Paraders. The kids are arguing in the background. Right now, baby.
Was Mexican. And you know, my mother was kind of, you know, knew Darlie pretty well. I said, "Is there any chance I can talk to her?" He said, "I'm sorry, my mother passed away a few years ago, and I didn't get a name, and I really wish I would have got a name. I got his name because I got the contract, but I should say my brother got the contract. I worked for my brother, but sad to say, I didn't get the name, but I know how to get in touch with it if necessary."
Well, why wouldn't you?
So I think we lost somebody here. Was
why wouldn't you?
again? Is there anybody else that wants them to hear?
Rich is still on the story with the construction work. The guy that worked at the construction office, whose son was friends with Devin and Damon, and they were scared to ride their bikes past the house, so Darlie's innocent, but he remains nameless. He had a really great conversation with somebody he could tell was very uncomfortable with the conversation. That's where we were at. So let's go.
Here and speak. I figure when we do these podcasts, we'll go 1 hour. Again, every Saturday evening at 8 p.m. we'll go 1 hour. And anybody wants to say anything, talk about anything, ask questions, I'd love to put it out there. We can really look into the facts of this case if we do it correctly. And that's what I want to make sure that we do. I want to make sure that we do it correctly, which was never done from the get-go.
Well, Rich,
So
leading by example, doing it correctly would be in that last part of this one. You kept giving us these names of people, and you mentioned to us how you knew Greg Davis personally. You said that you were trained by some of the best investigators in the world. Whole lot. Oh, you also let us. There was once that you said that Darren actually accused Beijing. So you said you just want to get started off on the right foot. I figured that's probably not the best way to go.
anybody at all. Okay. Well, I'd really love to know who the 3 or 4. Well, we're down to 3. I guess I'm losing the attention of some of the folks here now. Sad to say. I don't know. I might not be nearly as entertaining as some of the others. Now, if you take a look at BryanSt.John, for example. I've talked to BryanSt.John, not over the phone or anything. I have sent him an email before. I have sent him some texts and some
4 years ago
stuff on Messenger over time. I also asked him to do a debate with me on this, as long as we can do it civilly and respectfully, because I'm not going to be trying to, BryanSt.John he's very passionate about. I'm very passionate about the case, but I don't want that bickering and those ridiculous personal attacks. It just doesn't help the situation.
Yeah, well, but what ridiculous personal attacks are you speaking of?
I do disagree with Bryan, but I will say that Bryan does make valid points in the case in some areas. The only thing that I get a little bit frustrated with Bryan about is that I feel as though that whatever the prosecution and the jurors believed and people that believed Darlie was guilty said, he takes his prophecy. I'm not sure that he necessarily goes and looks at both sides of the story. I will admit there are some strange things with the case that I find.
So you don't think I look at both sides of the story? Well, he doesn't realize that I started out as a supporter, apparently, at that point.
Find very suspicious, very, very strange things, and things that I'm currently looking in through because, I mean, one of the biggest questions I have is on the voluntary statements that Darlie and Darren gave to the Rowlett Police Department.
You know, I think I went through this. This is where he says they were
clearly, in my opinion. I'm very familiar with those kind of statements. I know how they present them to people, and I unfortunately have had to.
They basically told them to write down what happened. That's how they presented to them. That's how they did it.
To do them before. I know how it works, and you know, anytime you're under the scrutiny of the police, or you're under the pressure of having to deal with the police.
Yeah, I'd be pressured. I'd be under the pressure of having to deal with the police if my two kids just got killed and they were trying to figure out who did it. I'd be upset about that. But
it can be frightening.
I already went through this.
Or that I was planning on getting a hold of, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I felt as though I was going to hurt. When I got a hold of Darlie Key, I mean, the first thing I told Darlie Key was, if I say anything to upset you or bother you, please tell me and I'll stop. In the video, I of the first 2 hours prior to, but from what I understand that is on it, there's a lot of mourning, there's a lot of crying, there was a little bit of a church service. It pretty much sealed her doom, sad to say, and the manipulators that were going to acquit Darlie at first, and then after more deliberations and watching the silly string video, I believe 8 or 9 times.
I'm gonna go through this. Let me see. I'm gonna move on to his next one. Let's see. Let's move on to the next one. I'm just going to Routier.
At Texas. I've been there on several occasions, but before we get into the podcast, let me say first off that I'm a little bit hoarse. Been a little bit under the weather this past week. As a matter of fact, I haven't been feeling very good since September, so I've had a lot of health issues, but we're going to get it all straightened out in time. Now, what I really wanted to do tonight was actually show some video that I've taken of the neighborhood. And I do got video of it, but I can't get it to work quite right. And I already canceled one of the podcasts on this, so I don't want to cancel another. So I figure for tonight, we could do it verbally and then at a later date, because I do got some people helping me get the better stuff up so we can actually start looking at pictures and videos and so on and so forth in the future. Now, I want to also make it clear that everything here is my opinions. Okay, nothing here that I discuss are proven facts. This is just what I found upon my investigation of the case.
Oh, you said you deal with facts there, though. So here we have the disclaimer that all of this is just Rich's opinion.
Now, being in the Routier neighborhood, there's really only one way in or out of it, streetwise.
Linda Vista.
And if I'm not initially from Texas, but I've lived in Texas for a good many years. And what I can tell you is people in Texas are fence crazy. Under Texas state law, there has to be a walkthrough every third house on the street. Now, where the sock was found in the alleyway
There's a walk.
is where a walk-through is to go from Eagle Drive in between the houses to the back by the trash receptacle or the manhole sewer area where the sock was found, which was 75 yards from where the assaults took place.
He's right.
And also tonight when we do comments, feel free to comment. Try to keep it with the subject material, subject matter. I will gladly answer each and every person back, either tonight or if they comment later, we'll do it later as well. So anyway, what I noticed upon my investigation is there's not a lot of ways in and out of the neighborhood.
He's right.
So from Doll Rock Road on the Linda Vista to Eagle Drive is really the only way in or out of that particular development. And there's a lot of fences up, which makes it very, very difficult to cut through yards unless you're going through the walkthroughs. Also, around the development area is a good portion of it anyways, kind of got like a wall going around the outside of the development, which would also not make it impossible to escape, but more difficult. It's more of a deterrent. Upon my investigation, I found, in my opinion,
It's more of a deterrent. All right, he mentions deterrent. You can't, if you're trying to prove her innocence and somebody came in that neighborhood into that house, words like deterrent wouldn't work in your favor. It would work in our favor, like deterrent would be TV on. From the window, you can see the TV on. 2 cages right there, because you don't know what's inside the house. Deterrent. Cutting the screen would make noise. Deterrent. Those are the types of deterrents that would make you question an intruder coming in there. Deterrent going into the neighborhood. You think he just kind of made our point for us. The house is on the corner. Deterrent. Going over that fence, the 9-foot fence, I believe. Deterrent. 8-foot. Deterrent. I wouldn't touch it.
proven fact. I want to make that clear. That whoever murdered Devin and Damon and did the assault on Darlie, my own personal opinion and belief is that it had to have been somebody that knew the Routiers very well and knew the neighborhood and knew that house. And I say this because it's not an easy neighborhood to get in and out of. Criminals that perform such acts.
So he claims it's someone that knew them personally at this point. I think he's abandoned that theory these days. As if it was someone that knew them personally, they would have knew that Darren was home. They would have knew that they were limited to driving the Pathfinder. The green Pathfinder you see behind Darlie as she's spraying the silly string, that's her car. If it was someone that knew the family, they would have knew that Darren was in there. If someone was watching the house, as they say, this black car kept watching the house, but people were just driving by looking at the fountain. If someone was watching the house, they would have seen Darren leave with Dana. That would have been the best time to attack, especially if it was somebody that was stalking Darlie personally. Look at her big breasts. She's so pretty. I think it was somebody that was, he said they were stalking Darlie. Best time to attack, if they were watching, as they try to make it seem, they would know that Darren just left. That they got time to go in and face her alone.
They want to know their exits. They don't want to get cornered. They don't want to get caught, plain and simple. So, they're definitely going to make sure that they know the area and their ins and outs and their do and don'ts, especially for something to this magnitude. Excuse me. So, the conclusions I've come up with is very simple, is that the person that committed this murder or persons had to know the Routiers well, know their house well, know the neighborhood well. In my opinion, it's just the way it comes back to me. In my opinion, it would be very.
If they were to know, if they needed to know their house well, to find the access to get in and out of there, right? And their plan was to cut a screen and go inside a window. I think that the one that's not in the fenced-in area and is right behind where Darren kept his boat, off in the corner by itself, I think that would have been the best way to go.
For just some random person to pick out their house and to commit such a horrible crime. How you doing, two here again? Nice to see you again.
That'd be Pam. Pam goes into the room there.
So we got 5 people in the room tonight.
Rich is excited.
I'm going to try to keep my throat from being so hoarse. And I'd love to get some comments going, get some opinions going, and so on and so forth. I'd like to apologize that I couldn't get my video feed to work correctly. Really bummed out about that, but I didn't want to wait no longer on this particular subject. Now, we can show the video in the future, which I definitely plan on doing. I'm going to get this perfected. So I would love to hear opinions, thoughts, questions, statements, anything, as long as it's not insulting to anyone. But opinions are definitely welcome here, and I'd love to get some chit chat going on this subject. Anybody got anything to say? Also, let me make it clear that with this in mind, if the intruder was escaping the neighborhood by vehicle, let's say, their time was pretty slim to get out of that neighborhood. Not impossible, because I've checked it out, but but very slim and able to get out.
Well, you have the testimony of William Gorsuch that had a clear view of the entire scene. He could see even out probably from the back to the back. He didn't see any other cars leaving. He would have seen a car go up Linda Vista. He had a clear view of Linda Vista. He didn't see any of that. He testified to that.
Out of there in the timing between when the murders took place, when Darlie Lynn called 911 at 2:31 a.m. to when Officer Waddell showed up. And mind you, Officer Waddell was literally right up the street. He was sitting in a church parking lot when the call came in. So there wasn't a line to escape by a vehicle.
You're right. And Waddell will tell you, he says he came in on Linda Vista. So that means the car would have to have gone out Linda Vista as he was speaking. I believe it was 1 minute, 54 seconds. I could be wrong. But Waddell got there pretty quickly. He wasn't even dispatched there. He just heard the fire signal come over the radio that there was a stabbing at this place. So he didn't even call it in. He just zipped over there.
Anybody have anything interesting to say tonight on this particular subject matter? I'd love to talk about it. I'd love to share. I'm always much better on a conversation when I get voir-dir'd, so to speak. I'd really love to have the opportunity to do this. Let me also point out that I have been in touch with BryanSt.John. I have been in touch with Terrell Foster, and Terrell Foster believes that Darlie is innocent, like myself, where BryanSt.John believes that Darlie Routier is guilty. I've had a pretty in-depth conversation with both of them gentlemen, and we do plan on doing some debates in the future. I look forward to it as well. We just kind of had to set some ground rules.
There were no ground rules. Nothing like that was discussed.
Okay. So does anybody have anything that they want to say this evening? I'd love to get something going here. Well, I tell you, today's technology is something else, isn't it? It's sad to say I'm rather ignorant to it. So, but I'm getting better with it in time here, slowly but surely. Yeah, I don't think you missed too much to hear again. Yeah, I do believe that. I do believe that to hear again, because of just the way everything transpired. The timeline from most likely the time when the murders occurred, the time the 911 call was made, and just the way that they would have had to get out of the neighborhood, providing us what transpired.
Let's see what we got here.
Because that neighborhood is complex. If you can't just, it's not real simple to get in and out of that neighborhood. And I've heard some others speak about that as well.
Well, we don't see Pam comments in the chat, which probably means she's been blocked from the channel. Bless her heart.
Other podcasts. Bonnie, I would say that that's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I know that through other criminal investigations.
Bonnie asked, could the intruder have hid in the neighborhood somewhere until the police left?
That I've done, and whether people know or not. I mean, I used to be the activities director at the Next Step in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I had over 600 clients, most of which were from very serious criminal background. And, I'd go through all their files to find out the certain things that would suit them to get themselves rehabilitated and back into life. And with this in mind, the people that commit crimes like this usually have everything, all their cards in order.
Yeah, well, no. You can't base it on people that commit crimes like this. Always have their cards in order. People who do random killings like this don't have their cards in order. That's why the evidence doesn't fit. No, they don't. Where do you get this? Random killings happen all the time.
Because obviously they don't want to get caught. Well, I didn't necessarily say that. Again, and I'm referring to Corey here. What I'm saying is I'm trying to make sure that I word this stuff correctly, because I can really get on a tangent here. So yes, this is about Darlie Routier, and you're asking me if that there was no evidence of an intruder. There's limited evidence. I wouldn't say that there was no evidence. I would say there was limited evidence. But I'm certainly not discounting it. I like the questions, people. Let's keep her going. Well, okay. You're allowed to feel that way if you want, Corey. It's no big deal. There's limited evidence, in my opinion, not no evidence.
Limited.
I would suggest that you take a look at it again. Well, you're asking me what evidence is there. First of all, we got a sock out in the alley. It's 75 yards away that had Damon and Devin's blood on it. You had a cut screen.
Okay, so how does that sock point to an intruder? Especially when it was her DNA that was on the inside toe of that sock. The sock came from in the house. The weapon that was used came from in the house. That means you just said these people that like this, they have it all together. All right, so somebody's intention is to go kill. Why not bring gloves? Why not bring a knife? You know you scope the neighborhood out and you can get away easy. So you can take these things away from the scene just in case it has any evidence of you on it. Someone that had themselves together wouldn't think about taking a sock that had possibly had their hair or their DNA on it and tossing it near the scene. If they were fleeing, they would have took it with them. That's my opinion.
There's also some other things in the house that can indicate that as well. Now, I want to make it clear, though, people, that now this is important. There may be some things with the case that I might not necessarily want to bring up at this time because...
Now, here we go with this. You can't do that. You can't post a platform claiming that someone that was committed, was convicted, and come out and say, look, she's innocent, but I can't say. If you really knew she was innocent, you could say, and you would no doubt, because you saying it to the public is not going to change the fact in it. Nobody can get in there and, now they know this. Nobody can get in there and mess that truth up if it's the truth, right?
I, in no way whatsoever, I absolutely refuse to endanger any possibility to hurting Darlie's chances of being found innocent of this horrendous crime.
That really is a lame excuse to not give information that you know. Because again, I can tell you that information isn't going to, if you have information that's factual, it's not going to change whether the people know it or not. It's going to be a fact. So that hush-hush stuff, we've been hearing that for years before you came along.
There are a couple things I might not want to discuss in deep detail at this time, but that will change in the future, I'm sure. Well, I don't know that they have absolute evidence that was her husband's sock. I know that's the claim.
And you don't know that they have absolute evidence that was the husband's sock, even though Darren said that was his sock. Even though that they know that it came from the utility room. Remember, your last episode, this is part 2, you said that you trained with some of the world's best investigators, and yet you did not know that. There's 100% evidence that sock came from the house. Both of us know that. We know that it's Darren's sock. We know what was testified to.
But I'm throughout other criminal investigations that I've investigated over the years.
He's invested criminal investigations over the years, but he didn't read the testimony.
I can definitely tell you this. I'm real big when it comes to evidence. I'm not a real fan of anticipation or speculation.
Then you would have knew the source of that particular evidence, that sock that's been tagged as evidence. You would have knew the source of its whereabouts, where it came from. You would have knew its origins if you're such a big fan of it.
Corey, you say that the screen was cut earlier and that was proven in court. I've never heard of that before. I've been through those court transcripts in pretty huge depth.
You just said that you've been through those court transcripts in huge depths, but you don't even know what Darren testified to.
I don't know how that could be proven that was done earlier. I mean, if a screen's cut, it's cut. I don't know how that it could be proved that it was done earlier. Right, I'm aware that Darren said that it was his sock. It was just a standard white tube sock.
Oh, now he's aware that Darren said. No, you weren't a minute ago.
There may be some things with the case that I might not necessarily want to bring up at this time because I, in no way whatsoever, I absolutely refuse to endanger any possibility to hurting Darlie's chances of being found innocent of this horrendous crime. There are a couple things I might not want to discuss in deep detail at this time, but that will change in the future, I'm sure. Well, I don't know that they have absolute evidence that that was her husband's sock. I know that's the claim, but I'm throughout other criminal investigations that I've investigated over the years, I can definitely tell you this: I'm real big when it comes to evidence. I'm not a real fan of anticipation or speculation. Corey, you say that the screen was cut earlier and that was proven in court. I've never heard of that before. I've been through those court transcripts in pretty huge depth. I don't know how that could be proven that that was done earlier. I mean, if a screen's cut, it's cut. I don't know how that it could be proved that it was done earlier. Right, I'm aware that Darren said that it was his sock.
Well, you just said there was no evidence about it. So if Darren said on the stand that it was his sock, and you still feel there's no evidence, and you think Darren lied on the stand. You know, he has not touched this one yet. I'd like to know about Officer Waddell's statement about Darren leaving the house when he arrived on the scene.
It was just a standard white tube sock. I mean, my God, I own probably 50 pairs of those myself, and they all look identical.
Darren not only said it was his sock, he said specifically that it was in the utility room in a bucket of socks that he kept to clean his tools with. But Rich said there's no evidence of that.
Listen, I'm not saying that it wasn't Darren's sock. What I said is that could have been anybody's sock. Also, what I'm trying...
No, you said there's no evidence that that was Darren's sock. And then you got called out on the missing testimony of the transcripts that you said you went through diligently. And you also said you're really big on evidence. You got called out on it. You got caught.
What I'm trying to say here is that even if it was, you got to remember, if an intruder come in there, okay, like I said, I've been to the house. Okay, I'm familiar, very familiar, actually.
He's never been in the house.
You went through that screen, okay? You walk through and there's a door. When you open that door, you're in the utility room. There was laundry in there. Okay, so you're going to go into that utility room before you're going to enter any other room in the house from that particular area. And there was laundry in there.
Yeah, and Darren testified to why that laundry was in there, and those socks specifically. Wow.
Yes, I've heard that before, Corey. I heard something about a red popsicle that had melted in there, but that was in the garage, not the...
He totally ignores the statement about Waddell. He does not answer Kelly S. He does not answer that. So far, he hasn't, anyway.
Utility room.
Yeah, he does not answer.
And by the way, to here again, when we're done with the podcast this evening, I would like very much to shoot you a private message. Now, somebody had mentioned something about you I'd like to ask you about. I don't want to do it publicly. It's nothing bad,
Then
nothing
why would
like
you
that,
do
nothing
that? Why
insulting,
would
but
you
I'm
shoot her?
actually rather
Why didn't you just shoot her a message, dude?
curious. Anybody that knows this case well knows of the misinformation out there. And, you know, I certainly don't want to cause or create any more of that.
He ignores that completely.
Thank you to here again. That is correct. Yes,
And
the
she
screen was
blocked
cut
him.
from the outside. They did prove that, but I don't recall of any mention of them saying what time it was cut. I don't know how you could put a timeline to when a screen gets cut.
Ignore that.
Yes, Corey, you're exactly right. I actually talked to a fellow that was friends with Damon and Devin. And the fellow was about Damon's age. I don't want to put his name out there because he did not give me permission to do so. I have shared his name with some other people, like with Darlie Key and some other
And if
folks.
he didn't give you permission to do that, then why did you share it with them?
But he had told me that they used to go in and out of that window. They used to go in and out of that window constantly. And they said, and what really caught me with him is that he told me on several occasions throughout the conversation that I had with him that he referred to Darlie as Mrs. Routier. It just kind of stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah, well, where was Mrs. Routier at when these kids are going in and out of her window constantly? Where's she at? Who's supervising her?
All these years later, he still calls her that. And he told me there's no way in a million years she could have done something like that, in his opinion. Now, he said that they used to go in and out of that window all the time. They used to get treats. They used to get, you know, popsicles and whatnot and different various things. And he loved it over there. He said all the kids loved it over there. You know, he said that that was known as the Nintendo house, which I've heard that before from somebody I don't recall offhand, but I just, he certainly seemed real to me. I was kind of testing him out when I was talking to him. You know, I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting a line of BS, and it sounded pretty valid. He clearly
why'd you ignore that
did not
question?
like to discuss the case. I mean, I could see he was getting uncomfortable. You know, when I first was talking to him, he said, you just dug up one of the worst nightmares of my life. You know, and I made it clear I wasn't trying to upset him or hurt anybody or anything like that. But I did make it clear to him, you know, who I was and what I do on the side and so on and so forth. And he had some pretty interesting things to tell me, which definitely coincide with what really went on over there. And he had nothing bad to say about Darlie at all. Everything was positive and good.
Totally ignored that.
Well, I know that the boys knew to take that screen, and they knew how to pop that screen off. I do know that. As a matter of fact, the one kid I talked to told me they knew just how to pop that screen out to get in and out of there. Now, I also want to say that obviously Darren and Darlie did not smoke, but people that come over the house that did smoke smoked in that window. Obviously because Darren and Darlie didn't want smoke in their house. So that's where people were smoking. As a matter of fact, if you look at the photographs of evidence of that window, you can see cigarette butts sitting in the bottom of it.
You can see one.
But just a little extra thing there I thought I'd throw out there.
A little extra thing would be that Dana was the one that was smoking out there that night. And she said she left that window open. Not people that come over there and smoke, Rich.
Well, I don't know whether they did or not, Corey. I don't know whether they popped it off each time they went in and out of there or not. I couldn't tell you. I wasn't there, sir. What I can tell you is that many people have made the claims that that's how those boys got in and out. And one of the people that I interviewed that knew that house well. He certainly seemed to anyway, in my opinion. I usually check leads out pretty in depth. I actually can drive people crazy checking on leads. And
well, you didn't check the transcripts because you got hung up on where that sock came from. You didn't check that. You didn't know that. World's best investigators trained you. You try to sell that to the public.
I mean, I didn't even mention that. He said they used to play in the yard, and they just, he said Mrs. Routier always had some kind of treat for us. And we'd go to the window and pop the screen out and go in. And that's exactly what he said, and I didn't say a thing about it.
If she always had a treat for him, why would they have to break into a house and get the treats? Why would they have to go in the window if Mrs. Routier already had treats for them? They trying to get more? If kids are climbing in and out of your garage window to get treats, that means they're unsupervised, and it means there aren't no treats available for them in the house. Or they'd just be in the house. All these kids are coming over, and you mean that they have to go in and out of the windows to get treats? That seems kind of greedy to me, Rich.
I just asked him if he thought Darlie did it, and he said absolutely not. I said, can you tell me any memories about the neighborhood over there? And he goes, well, I could tell you the good ones, and I could tell you the bad ones. And the bad ones were after the murders took place. He said himself and many, many other children in the neighborhood were frantic of that house. They didn't want to ride their bikes past it no more.
Yeah.
So, there's really a lot of victims involved, not only Darlie's family, Darren's family, but, those boys were pretty well known in that neighborhood, to my understanding, and a lot of other children went to that house to play, and they were also severely affected by it. I mean, I thought this grown man was about to cry as we were getting, pretty deep into the discussion. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. I mean, this is 24 years ago, folks.
Yeah, you said that you could tell he was getting uncomfortable. And now you say he didn't want to talk about it anymore. That means you pushed him, right?
Well, Corey, you're saying there were 5 or 6 odds of that. Well, I can tell you this, is that window was very low to the ground. Wouldn't have been very difficult for a child to get in and out of it. I can tell you that. I've seen it. Also, as far as popping a screen in and out every time, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. Then maybe the screen wasn't in there half the time. I couldn't tell you, but excuse me. The Routiers were pretty pristine people. I consider them clean people. I consider them kind of on the uppity up. I don't think that they would have had a screen torn like that and the children leaving it that way. Also, you have to understand, if a child was going through the screen, or if the child tore the screen, okay, you would think it would have been torn from the bottom of the screen. This screen wasn't torn that way. The screen was a T-cut from the top and then down part way, a good portion of the way, I should say, down the center. Unlikely that a child did that.
You think that a child is not smart enough to do that? Did you not miss the statement that Darren made about Devin, all right, teaching him how to do Windows 95? He said Devin taught him how to work Windows 95. Don't underestimate a kid, is all I'm saying.
I'm trying to catch up on some of these comments here, folks. Bear with me here a minute.
Except for that one about Waddell.
Okay, Corey, I'll say it again. In my opinion, there is minimal evidence of an intruder. Okay, but I don't believe that there's no evidence of an intruder. There's minimal evidence of an intruder.
What's your evidence?
In my opinion.
What's your evidence?
Okay. Now, some of the evidence that you're referring to that you want me to put out there, I'm not I don't really want to do that at this time. I would be glad to do it at a later date. I promise you that. Or, there's just a lot of things up in the air with the case right now, and I don't want to put information out there real in depth on that. I hope you can respect that. So, anyway. It's good chat tonight, folks. I know there's only 7 people in here, but I'm actually enjoying this. Sad to say but it's for a good cause, in my opinion. I've had quite a few correspondence with Darlie Lynn in prison. She's a very good writer and a very positive writer. I enjoy every letter I get from her. And I only hope that she feels the same about mine. That's great, Corey. Then you're exactly the person I want to see here. You're exactly the person I want to see here. You say that you're here for facts and truth. Absolutely. I am all for that.
About that anyway.
Well, I just kind of want to keep it with the subject matter if possible, because I don't want to get way off out in left field. It's real easy to do that with this case. This is no simple case whatsoever, I promise. It's probably one of the hardest I've ever investigated. Due to the fact of the controversy, the misinformation, the very poor investigation done by the Rowlett Police Department, and to say the least, the baloney that went on in the courtroom. But no, fire away, Corey. As long as it's not insulting, fire away. I'm all about that.
Kelly didn't ask me.
The subject here, Corey, is the Routier's neighborhood. We're talking about the neighborhood. And like I said, I was really hoping to show a video tonight. I couldn't get it to work properly, but I promise you I'm going to get it to work. I got people helping me with it. I'm going to perfect this podcast super, super soon. But yeah, I love the subject matter here. But here's the thing. If I don't know something for a fact, I'm not going to put it out there. I don't like to speculate. But if I do speculate or say that it's in my opinion, I will say that.
You speculated that there was no evidence that being Darren Sock, even though Darren Sock testified in depth as to where it came from.
If I know something for a fact, I will tell you. I don't like the area of speculation. That can get an investigation in trouble real quick. Well, I think the neighborhood's important. I think that there's a lot to the case that I think that needs to be examined accordingly, and I don't think that it gets examined nearly enough. And like I said, I know that neighborhood. I've been in there several times.
You know, right now these videos, they're not. You know, there's a few people that like they'll catch ground, and eventually, I just like to have lives with the non-supporters and supporters in there. You know, because some of this stuff that's being put out is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay. We're having our nightly dose.
I only live about 25 minutes from there, give or take 5-10 minutes. And what I noticed that was kind of strange with it is the access of getting in and out of that neighborhood. It's not easy.
Actually, it's not strange at all. And just quickly, I will show you. I love my new system. It's a lot faster. Let me present over here real quick. I'll stop that screen and then present this one. La-dee-dee-dee-dee. 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 La-dee-dee. What he's talking about is he's talking about coming in and coming out from Linda Vista right here. See, that's where Waddell came in. That's where all the officers came in. They didn't come in from any other. They came in from out here, which is Maine, Darlock. We got bars there now. Now again, when Waddell pulled up, he claims to have parked right here. When Wally pulled up, he claims to have parked right over in here. You had this William Gorsuch, whom I spoke to his wife not too long ago. She asked me not to share it. Now, as long as she's alive, I'm not going to share it. Otherwise, I will be sharing that. I asked her, and she doesn't want me to. Her son was Jonathan. Now, this is the window that I'm talking about right here. You know, if somebody was stalking it, I mean, you would, you take the chance here of being seen in this house. If you're wearing dark clothing, you get right up along the side and do that. But, this fence, that would be a deterrent to me right there by itself. Especially if you look over the fence and see, like you would be able to see over the fence, and the TV would have been right there. And you'd see that light, right? And you'd also see the steam house right here. I would think that was an animal, for animals. But you didn't hear it. Just because you don't hear any doesn't mean there isn't any. And the back window right there, let's see if I can get it. Now these are blacked out now. They weren't like that before. But right there is the window. And it shows Darren going in and out of it, in and out of it. And Greg Davis says, when you step out that window, you come immediately to a flower patch. They keep saying, no, there was no mulch under there, as if he's stupid or something. But that's the way the house looks. Oh, the sunflowers are beautiful. Okay, so let me see here. And then while I'm here where the sock is, while I'm here real quick, the sock would have been right there, right where that arrow is. Right there is where it was found. And personally, I think that Darlie threw that sock at 10 and hit that gutter and she missed. Because as you notice, the reason I say that is because that's the first gutter she comes to, right? I think she slipped them Reeboks on, and she did ask him to fix the gate that night. I think that's the first gutter she comes to, right? So that's what I think the intention was to go in that gutter, because she knew it came from the house. And Rich is talking about this pass through right here. That's exactly what he's talking about right here. He's correct. There is a walk through there, right? But you got to remember. First of all, Gorsuch had a bird's eye view, right? You can see right here, right there. He saw where the ambulance pulled in, all of it. So if an intruder came out the front, Gorsuch, that means that he would have to come down through these yards to right here. I believe, yeah, it's this one. For some reason, Google Maps got that blurred out. But that's the through and through right there. It's that far away from the house. He had cops coming in, too. One cop noticed that Darren was outside, so. They go back to the right one. I'm going to close that. then we'll go to this. Yep, the imaginary timeline. There is no timeline.
Easy getting in and out of that neighborhood. And those houses in that neighborhood are extremely close together. I mean, you could almost reach an arm out the window and touch the house next door. Not all of the houses, but a lot of them.
They're good 10, 12
Very close
feet apart.
together. They do that down here in the North Dallas area.
Especially the Ryan homes.
Probably to maximize profits on developments. You know,
I don't know what subdivision that is, but I know that my dad and myself actually in Houston and sometimes in Dallas and outside of Lubbock, there were Ryan homes. The Ryan homes are they're really known for packing them in. And they're quality homes. I don't know if those are Ryan homes. They're all over the place, though.
More houses, you know, so they can sell more houses, and people have very, very limited yards. The Routiers, their front yard was halfway decent. Their backyard was very minimal, very small. I'm catching up on some of these comments here, folks.
Don't miss that one about Waddell. That has to do with the neighborhood. You avoided it. Because he can't answer that one at this point. I got to stretch.
Let me ask you a question, Corey. You're talking about Darlie and her lies to cover for Darren. Can you be more specific?
Oh, it's pissed off. You don't like nobody talking about Darby. Oh.
Well, actually, we don't know if she laundered that particular sock or not. You have to remember, Helena was coming over and doing quite a bit of the laundry. I don't know.
That means you didn't read the testimony yet again, because Helena testified to doing that laundry.
Nobody really has the answer to that.
Yeah, it does. Helena does. It's apparently he's not studied the case as well at that point.
Corey, I have a feeling I know who you are, by the way. But it's all good. It's all good. Some people like to hide their identity.
Probably think
I don't. I try to put my real identity out there. I have nothing to hide from anybody.
he probably thinks that's me.
The key purpose, in my opinion here, is to stay focused on what's important. This is what I told Mr. St. John. This is what I told Mr. Foster. When, you know, a lot of the bickering and arguing starts, the whole point gets lost. Now, let me just say this, and I've heard this from another Darlie supporter, and it really caught me. I'm not going to put her name out there, but I'm going to say this. For those that believe that Darlie is guilty, you really got not a thing in the world to complain about. I mean, what more do you really want? She's on death row. She's been in there for 24 years. So you really got nothing to complain about.
Well, we only complain, Rich, is when people come out here with, you know, things that they call facts that are based on opinion. We feel like that's disrespectful to those two boys that she put in the ground. So what we have to complain about is, no, you're wrong, and this is what she did. We don't want to take away from what she did. You try to take away from what she did. That's what we have to complain about. It's all right. She's locked up. Let him talk. No.
So justice is being served in that, on that aspect. As far as I didn't say that, Corey. I know who Joe is, but I'm not saying that. I agree with you. That's what. It's exactly right. That's what matters. The truth is what matters.
That probably is Joe Douglas. Joe always tries to blame it on Darren.
There's other evidence that's currently being looked at, and it's definitely going to give us a lot of answers to a lot of questions. And from what I'm understanding, it's looking good for Darlie. But we'll find out. Correct. You be more specific. Okay, all right. Well, wait a minute. You already said something about Darlie lying for Darren. Hey, James Wood, how are you? Hey, I got your message, by the way. And you know what? I got it real super early this morning. And I've worked about 50 hours in the past 3 days, so I'm incredibly tired. So when I got up this morning and I was scrolling through, because I was telling my missus that I had gotten that message from you. And I accidentally deleted your friend request. I apologize about that.
Oh,
I'm going to be talking.
did he say that again?
Tomorrow I got a little bit of time. There's some other people I'm going to talk to, and so on and so forth here.
I missed it if you said it again. Hang on, let me get my camera put back. If he said it again, I missed it.
Anybody else have any other comments they want to put out there? Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
What the hell's wrong with you, Rich?
Yeah, James, you know what? I'll do that tomorrow. I'll get in touch with you. And hopefully we can talk a little bit. But, you know, let me put something out there that I was actually telling one of Darlie Lynn's good friends. I'm not going to say what her name is.
We actually did a test with that serrated knife, the rounded tip screen cut thing. It's actually easier, especially in a T portion, because you got to remember that Charles Lynch did testify that the way the jagged cut in that screen did indicate to him that it came from a serrated knife. So that would tell me that, you know, with it being a T cut, you would just go boop like that. All right, and you could possibly open it up like that into a T cut. You might not need to do it that way, but that corresponds with those cuts that Darlie would have on her fingers. She didn't get them on one hand, but she got them on the other one. Because, you know, all that screen had to do was rub just a little bit for her to get that. If that's what he said. I missed it while I was messing with my camera.
You know, when most people, I'm sure, that are even somewhat fluent with this case know who Terrell Foster is with Real World Podcast. Jeez, I talk about a tongue twister. And
well, Terrell only put out 2 videos about Darlie, which he claimed to sit down and talk to the family, and then he did it no more. So,
Mr. St. John, BryanSt.John, then there was a lot of arguing going on there for a while, and they've tamed it down. You know, they've come up with a happy medium, I think. And, you know, on some of those chats, you know, I come in, I didn't verbally speak, but I did do some typing and so on and so forth. What we need to do, folks, whether you believe that she's guilty or not guilty, I don't know that the fighting is really doing the case any justice, regardless of how you feel. Excuse me, my gosh. One second. Okay, well, I started going into that a little bit. I do not believe I'm not putting everything out there at this time. Okay, I said it was minimal, and anybody who has ever talked with me about the case, they've heard me say that way. I believe personally that there's minimal evidence that indicates an intruder, but I'm not saying it was impossible. Something that we can do in a future podcast is look at some of the photography of the blood evidence on the clothes. I was able to prove a lot of little things with that, which basically backs up Darlie's story to the tick. So we'll be doing that podcast on a future podcast.
You turned the comments off on that one.
To hear again, thank you. I'm glad you said that. I really do too. I can't stand the misinformation.
Well, you're giving out a lot of it, Rich.
First of all, those that are in support of Darlie, all that does is hurt the case. It hurts Darlie then. And those that are non-supporters, or I don't know if I said that right or not. I'm extremely exhausted, folks. But I just wanted to make sure that I got in here and did this tonight like I said I would. Like I said, regardless on whichever side you're on, misinformation, the bickering. I mean, I have seen some people make comments to one another on this case that were just beyond insanely ridiculous. I just don't get it. I mean, we're all human beings, people. Yeah. And yes, if those that believe that Darlie did do it, I do not believe she did. But those that believe that she did do it, you got not a thing in the world to worry about. You've got everything you could have possibly wanted. And what gets me is that people will fight tooth and nail and insult and I mean, talk about hate. And yes, don't get me wrong. I don't like and I don't like child murderers either. I actually know quite a few of them from back home in Pennsylvania, but I don't believe that Darlie Lynn's one of them.
That's exactly what my wife would do. She wouldn't chase after nobody. She'd holler for me. She'd come to me. She would have ran upstairs.
By any stretch of the imagination.
I feel just like that profile picture sometimes, Frank.
Well, keep in mind, Corey, one thing that Darlie was extremely confused when she come to on that couch. She said that Damon was tapping her on the shoulder, saying "mommy," crying "mommy," and I mean, she made it very clear that things were out of whack. Things weren't quite right. And you got to also remember the room was dark. The only light that was available in that room was from a TV screen off in the distance, which is not a very reliable source of light.
The hell of a deterrent for a burglar,
you got to keep that in mind also. Folks, when I investigate cases, let me tell you how I normally do this. I like to look at both sides of a case. Okay, what makes people believe that this person is innocent? What does people believe makes this person guilty? Let's take a look at both sides of the case. It's kind of like when you go in the courtroom. You got the defense, you got the prosecution. Let's look at both sides of the case. So many people get fueled by the media with this case, especially when it occurred in '96. There's so much misinformation that got put out from the media in 1996 on this case. It was insanely nuts. I just can't believe the lie.
Yeah, he was just not calmly. Now, the getting up and going for mommy, I can understand. But the tapping on the shoulder, that was his logical, mommy. No, kids freak out when they're hurt. Especially when they're that age. They feel like the whole world's against them because they got a boo-boo.
It's like on the one news broadcast in '96, shortly after the murders, it appears that there was large insurance policies on those boys. There was a large insurance policies on those boys. Those boys each had a $5,000 life insurance policy. Now, let me also make it clear that it costs $12,000 for the funeral.
It costs $13,000 for the funeral, and Cyril de Routier put in the other $3,000 because she told me that directly.
The burial for those boys. And Cyril de Routier threw in the other $2,000
Yeah, the $3,000.
to have those boys buried.
That's not a
And
huge
the
mistake.
$10,000 for the insurance buried them. So that's no motive, in my opinion.
Right.
And there is no motive. Darlie had no motive to murder those boys.
Yeah.
None
There
whatsoever.
doesn't have to be a motive. There doesn't have to be a motive. That's what you don't understand, mister. That's what you don't understand, mister.
No, you're incorrect, Corey. Now, Darlie Lynn had a $200,000 life insurance policy that Darren turned on about, I think it was 3 or 4 months prior to the murders. It was $200,000 insurance policy. On Devin and Damon, there were
No motive needed
$5,000
anywhere.
insurance policies on each boy, which would have been a total of $10,000.
No motive needed anywhere. My fat belly, check it out. I cannot get this camera to sit right.
I'm wrong about that? Are you sure? I promise you I'm not wrong about that. Okay, the initial insurance policy on Darlie Lynn was $200,000. We're not talking about accidental death.
Last time I did a reaction on a 911 call, I had everybody cracking up, but I heard a lot of things, you know. The testimony of Beja, well, like Beja told me, you know, she told me that she only answered what she was asked. Yeah. And because she had a whole lot more. And but yeah, the 911 call, I could hear you. I could clearly hear her say, "I promise." I hear it, you know, and it sounds to me like when Darren says, you know, when are they going to get here? It does kind of sound like he says, "Did Blake come in here?" To me. So yeah, I will. I'm going to work on these with Rich. Hopefully he'll watch them and take a look at himself. I mean, it's like, wow, dude. I'm trying. I'm not going to be rude.
We're talking about the life insurance policy.
That's my twin. I got my twin today. That's my twin, y'all. See my twin? That's my twin.
Well, Corey, I can definitely tell that you have passion for the case. I have passion for the case, obviously. I'm doing a podcast, and I've done a criminal investigation on my own dime and dollar, and I'm glad to do that.
Day.
I'll never accept money for what I do. I try to find the truth. And when I see somebody innocent on death row, after the conclusion, I'm going to tell you what, when I first went into the case, I told Darlie Key this. When I first went into the case, I felt as though that Darlie Lynn was guilty. I had a good friend of mine that does a podcast called Criminally Listed. Check it out. It's a very good podcast, and many hundreds of podcasts. Anyway, he was telling me to look at the case because he actually did a podcast on Darlie's case. He told me to take a look at the case because I was actually looking at the Candace Hills case at the time.
It was about 4.
And so I went ahead and I took a look at the case, and I'm like, oh, this lady's guilty. But it's interesting because it's in Rowlett. Let's go take a ride. Let's call some folks. let's get into this. And I tell you, it didn't take much time for me to realize something isn't right.
Well, you said you investigated this and that you were taught by world famous investigators. You also said you investigated a whole lot of criminal cases, not mentioning any.
Here, what I was saying is the people that believe media at the time that those boys were murdered were saying that there was large insurance policies on those boys. That's what I was saying.
Believe me.
Believe me,
I tried. There were 13,000 videos on there, and there's a lot of them that had a lot of other true crime cases that were done well when I was trying to make money off of it. Now I just use it because I don't like to type so much. But I have fun making these videos. But yeah, there were a lot of pretty good ones on there. Like I said, that one Chris Watts video that I got, I put the video up of the Metallica song Battery, and I put the 2 and 2 together that he was sitting out at the when he was looking up the lyrics to that song Battery. It was in his testimony. He was sitting out at the oil, where the oil drums are, and they call those batteries, right? Those things are actually called batteries. And so I put the Metallica and that song together. Cannot kill the family, battery, battery, battery. So I put it together, and I put the Metallica song up. Because when that 2,000-page discovery came out on Chris Watts, I was waiting on it. So as soon as it got released, I had it. And that's the first thing I went through. I was watching Clarissa X, but all I did was put that up. And then within just a couple hours, I had 146,000 views. And then the next day, it was way up over. I got way more than that over. And that was just not trying. That's just me liking Metallica. And I knew that he and Shanann went to a Metallica concert, so he was a big Metallica fan. And I put that together. And, yeah, it was. Yeah, check it out. The song Battery by Metallica. And just think, Chris Watts was literally sitting out there. He had just buried her, and he had just put them the babies in them drums. And he was waiting on his supervisor to get out there to clear him or something. He had to wait. It was around 10:30. And while he was sitting in his truck, he did that. He also he also took a shit out there in the field and wiped his ass out there. They don't tell too many people about that. But I guess you got to go. All right, let's get back to Rich.
I have the media clip, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So $5,000 insurance policy, each one of those boys, that's nothing. You can see, it cost $2,000 more to bury those boys than what the policies are even worth. So it's certainly no motive for Darlie to have wanted to kill those boys like the media had claimed, or how Greg Davis had claimed. Let me also say, folks, that I know Greg Davis, the lead prosecutor in the Routier case. I'm no fan. I know him on a personal level. The people that know me well know why. I could clearly tell you that he's not about doing what's right and wrong. He's about, and I would love for him to come on the podcast and debate me on the subject. And I know this for a fact.
Greg Davis never returned any type of nothing. He don't want nothing to do with it, period.
It's not about what's right and wrong with his job. It's about getting another conviction under his belt. He don't care about the families he destroys, the people he disrupts, the people he hurts. He'd care less.
So did Greg Davis come up with all this evidence? Did he do that?
It's another conviction under his belt.
Sure he does. That's his job. That's what his job is. And so how did he mush fake it? How did he commit some kind of prosecutorial misconduct in this case? Tell us.
Yeah, no fan of Greg Davis. I don't know Toby Shook. I don't know anything about him. But Greg Davis, I do know.
And 50 some episodes later, he goes, "Oh, Toby Shook's an idiot." But we're not going to get into that.
I'm not saying the media is not the blame, but the media said it. Maybe they should be clear of their facts before they make statements like that. That's what the media is supposed to be for. Let's also keep in mind, folks, I don't want to get off the subject matter, but our founding fathers in the United States said that our media was to be the fourth unwritten branch of government. It was supposed to hold our government's feet to the fire so that we get better government. Of course, today's national news media is a joke at best.
Well, you got to understand this, Rich, that you're on social media and you're putting out information about a case that is true. You, in a sense, are your own media today. This is technology. So you have the responsibility of putting out the facts. You can't say, I talked to Joe Blow that worked on this construction site that knew this kid that lived 2 miles away that said they couldn't ride by their house on their bikes. You can't do that.
And in the Routier case, it was as well. So they need to get clear of their facts before they start putting stuff out there, because they were clearly wrong. I do not consider a $5,000 life insurance policy a large sum of money at all.
They never said that either. They said that they were having financial difficulties and it was stressing her out.
Especially when a death is involved.
Was she willing to sell her wedding ring with the $10,000 of jewelry? Desperate people do desperate things.
Well, let me say this, Corey. I'm not putting at this time. I'm not going to be casting blame on anybody in specific.
Jamie.
Only because you can bet the farm I got an idea who's done this through investigation, but we got one little problem with that. It's called.
Well, hello there, Lemonade. Nope, no drama here. I've been a good boy here lately. I go back to what I've done. That's it. It's just true crime. My channel's all Darlie. Sometimes a little bit of beat shit now and then.
Evidence. So there are a lot of supporting bits of evidence that kind of go toward something, but again, I'm not ready to put that out there just yet, because I'd like to be able to prove claims. I'm working on it. Believe me, I live and breathe this case. When I'm not at my regular 9-to-5 job every day, I'm working on this case. So I promised Darlie Lynn that I would work on this case until she's vindicated. And if she's never vindicated and the other transpires and she's executed, I also.
Mama told me life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Mama bought me some magic shoes. But of course, Mama used to beat me with a rubber hose too.
Also promised her I still wouldn't stop until she's vindicated. I gave her my word on that.
I fucking love you, man.
I'll give you this, Corey. I'll give you this.
Corey,
I like your passion for the case.
that's Joe Douglas.
I definitely will do that. See, unlike some other people with different podcasts, some people get really upset and they start tripping out on other people really bad. Now, that's something I won't do. Now, if somebody pisses me off, I'll just boot them. But, or if they start insulting Darlie's family or something like that. But we're not no insults. Let's talk evidence
Okay.
without
I
insults.
see Kelly S. came back.
And I'm not going to say whether I agree with you or not, because I'm not going to do that at this point. Well, Kelly, I'm actually starting to do that now. I just want to do it in segments because this case is huge. And you can see, like clearly tonight, our discussion was to be on the neighborhood. And we've gotten clearly way off track. You see, this is what I'm saying. That's why I like to keep it centralized on specific subjects.
Well,
And
she asked you a legitimate question about the neighborhood as far as Waddell pulling up and finding Darren out on the yard, and you just did not answer that. So, what am I doing, man? Freaking out.
keep moving along every week, and we'll keep covering everything as long as I can. And I'm sure that's going to be for a long time. I promised Corey I'm not confused.
I'm so confused.
I didn't call you Joe. I never called you Joe.
He didn't, but it is Joe. Joe's a pain in the ass to both supporters and non-supporters.
Well,
Get it, Rich.
always remember, folks, when you're looking at a case, especially this dynamic and with such severity, it's important to look at the small things. It's not the big things. It's the small things. The small things will bring you to a conclusion quicker than looking at the big things. I promise.
I tell you something, Crank. I know quite a bit about the Manson case, but we can't put anything out there that nobody has heard anything in that case that hasn't been heard. But I do know that case very well, and actually it was Vince Bugliossi's book came out when I was around. I don't know. I was young when it came out, and it's like one of the first books I read back to back. Yeah, that's Perfect Line Guy. That's me. That's me, man.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Corey, because I know Joe.
I know.
I've had many discussions with Joe.
Joe's a pain in the ass.
I'm not here to give you my personal opinion of Joe, but why would that be insulting to you?
I tell you what, though, I used to think Susan Atkins was fucking hot. Sexy Sadie. Oh, yeah. She was creepy hot. And then she did this one interview where she sat down and told exactly how they did it. It was creepy, but she was hot.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, it is true. Joe's got a pretty bad reputation on the World Wide Web with the Routier case. But I've had many conversations with Joe. I've spent many a night at my working station over here talking with Joe, looking at stuff.
Joe Douglas used to call David Waddell and harass the hell out of him. He was telling me about Sadie Mae Lutz. You know what?
What evidence are you referring to here?
You got to remember, I grew up. I don't know how old you are, but I grew up in the 70s era, and that's the way women looked. Their hair straight down, the dresses, kind of hippie was cool. And I thought I thought she was kind of sexy. Yeah, but at the end, it was like, oh shit. And when she cut her hair short, no. But I like, as far as my crush, my like every true crime has one that they're kind of like. There's one that you kind of feel sorry for just because they're so damn cute, and that's Shayna Hubers. You know, she shot her boyfriend right in the fucking face, and he was set to go out with like Miss Tennessee or something that night. And you know, her comment was, "Well, he always said he wanted a nose job, so I gave him one." She's a fucking nut, but she's cute.
Yeah, and if it has to do with the neighborhood, let's bring it up. Let's do it. And we'll definitely do a different subject matter next week. Ah, Kelly, very interesting.
Yeah, Terry, Mystery Maverick. I thought she was the older lady, but I've seen pictures of her, and she's a very nice looking woman. Yeah, Mystery Maverick is. I thought she was older. I really like those the accent there. I hate to be in a tiff with her though. Yeah, Shani Hubers was pretty good looking. She got married to some freak of nature is the only thing I can describe this person as, and now they've gotten a divorce. Yeah, but you talk about she didn't want to be broken up with. Shani Hubers. Ooh, shit. Pissed her off. She's like, I will shoot you in the face, dude. I'll shoot you in the fucking face.
There was a black car that was seen a couple different occasions. One time, Karen Neal, which was the Routier's neighbor that lived directly across the street, said that the car actually stopped on the Neal's side of the road and was staring at the Routier house. And
Wait a minute, I want to double check that real quick. I don't think that is what she said. Let's see. I just want to look at this real quick. Let me stop sharing there. And then I will. Oh my God, that dude's got a big old head. The hell is wrong with us? Oh, here, let me get my big old head out of there real quick. Sorry to put you all through it. There we go. Let's see. Let's see how she said it. I don't know how well it looks on for you guys. All right, well, you should be able to see this. Let's take a look here. I haven't been through it. Texas Instruments. Terry Neal, I believe, died in 2007. 12 years of nursing. 2:35 in the morning. Let me double check exactly what he said. I'm talking about Karen Neal with the black car. He said it actually slowed down. Talking about Darren running over to the house. Talking about changing. She's going over to the house. She's a nurse. She went directly to Darlie. They carpooled. She's talking about what she saw. Bill and Gail Gorsuch. Nelda Watts. Yeah, because all right, there's an objection to hearsay, which is really good on Toby Shook's part, because Mulder was asking Karen Neal, did you talk to the Watts, and wanted them to explain what the Watts said back in the court, and that is the definition of hearsay. Yep. Did you point at an area along with Nelda Watts as to where a small black car had been parked that day? Again, it's hearsay because Nelda Watts isn't there to testify. And here's the objection would be, Judge, I object again. He's going into what another neighbor did. That would be hearsay. If that's just her, that's fine. All she said was the neighbor was present. Okay. The question was overruled. So now Mulder's got to bring it back the right way. Go ahead. You can answer that. Yes, sir. Show the jury where the little black car was parked. Nelda and I had a discussion that she saw a black car. Nelda and I had a discussion that she saw a black car. Judge, again, I'm going to object to anything she said. I had a discussion about the other neighbor. All right. But see, they get that in anyway. The jury gets to hear it. Go ahead and answer. A small black car was seen in this area of my mailbox in front of Nelda Watts' mailbox. Okay, now had you seen a small black car in your neighborhood in that area, parked in that area a week? Or tell the jury when the small black car had been there earlier. 7 to 8 days before the episode at the Routier house. I came home from work at 3 in the morning. I saw a small black car that was stationed right in front of my sidewalk. It was against my curb, and the person in the car seemed to be angled towards the Routier home. Yes, sir. Okay, did the vehicle have windows that you could easily see through, or were they tinted? No, sir, they are tinted. All right. It was dark tinting. All right. His window, I was only able to see his. Now, at first she said she can't see in there, but she goes, I was only able to see his eye level only. So where does his come from? And you told the jury he appeared to be focusing on the Routier house. Yes, sir. Did that strike you as unusual? Did you say anything to him or do anything or go into the house? When I got out of my car to approach, he sped off fastly. He drove off at a high rate of speed. Then went on break. Okay, so let's take a look at the neighborhood again real quick. La-dee-da-dee-da, and I'll show you where she says. There it is. Let me share you to. Let's get out of that real quick. Okay. Let's go to stop screen, and then go to present. Get my big old head out there. Come on, big old head out there. Ain't nobody want to see that boy. What the hell's wrong with you, son? All right. So. No. Right here. Now, let's see if I can get over there. The camera's on right there, Princess. You going? All right, I'll be in there soon. Now, $89.05. I'm going over here just to be sure. I want to be sure which ones I want to go. Be sure I don't want to go to the wrong house. Hang on now. I believe it's 8905. I'll go back down to the testimony about the car. In the area in front of her mailbox and in front of Nelda's mailbox. Okay. So that would be right here. That's what they're talking about. The car was sitting right there. Right? So I believe that this would be Nelda Watts' home right here. So now they said that the car appeared. They said it was sitting right here. And it appeared to be looking at Darlie's house. Now, I venture to say that if there was a car there, that fountain that was in the yard, right here, $6,000. Let's see how close I can get up to it. See if you can see any evidence of it. No evidence of it. That looks like a lighting fixture. But the fountain was beautiful. And, it was stated that people would often slow down to look at it. They said that the car was right in here. And that when they pulled up, he took off. Right? My logic would be they're coming down the street. They see that fountain. They're like, wow, that's cool. They pull over. They may take a picture of it. Something like that. Then they figured that the person that's coming up behind them, that they're in their area, that they're in their spot, and that they want to take off and get out of there. That's what I would assume. Yeah, that's the Gorsuch house. It wasn't uncommon for people to slow down and take a look at that right there, is all I'm saying. Go Rush. Yeah, I get it wrong. He had his pants on. So let me get back to where we were here. Stop sharing. Oh my God, there's my big old mug. I don't want to see it. I'll get it out there. Stop. Why do you make us do this? Oh no, my God, why do you put us through that? Bam. There it is. Oh, there's Rich's big old mug.
Bring it up. Let's do it. And we'll definitely do a different subject matter next week. Kelly, very interesting. Yeah, there was a black car that was seen a couple different occasions. One time, Karen Neal, which was the Routier's neighbor that lived directly across the street, said that the car actually stopped on the Neal side of the road and was staring at the Routier house. It had
Well, she said he appeared to be looking at the house. Which, when you've got a big piece of jewelry in your yard like that, it's not uncommon for people to appear to be looking at your house.
complete stop of the car. She said that she walked toward the car to see what in the world they were doing, and they took off quickly, rapidly.
Let's see. Right in front of my sidewalk. Okay. No, not my big face again. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody. It's not cool. Quit doing that. All right, let me see here. Back to the testimony. We will be. Bam! Satan. Okay. It was against my curb, and the person in the car seemed to be angled towards the Routier home. You just said that, the only thing she says, okay, how was the small black car parked in that area? It was against my curb, and the person in the car seemed to be angled towards the Routier home. Okay, there was a person occupying that vehicle. Yes, sir. Okay, did the vehicle have windows that you could easily see through, or were they tinted? No, sir, they were tinted. All right. It's dark tinting. She clarified. All right. Were you able to see the individual at all? I was able to see his eye level only. Okay, why is that? His window only opened approximately a small amount. All right, you told the jury that he appeared to be focusing on the Routier home. Well, she said it needed to be parked at an angle towards the home, but yes, sir. Did that strike you as usual, and did you say anything? When I got out of his car, he sped off very fastly. Okay, I want to see what she was said to in cross. Let's see. Let me go all the way down here. Nope. Motor Hunter. Okay, Shook. Shook's got her. Let's see. He's going at her about Gangster Paradise. The funeral. Okay. So they're talking about the night of. I'm sorry. After Darren got you out of the house, you didn't go back in your house for several hours, did you? I mean, you were primarily out in your front yard because of all the police and stuff. I was basically out front. Yes, sir. Okay. Did you talk with some police officers? The police officer I talked to was approximately in the middle-aged 50s. Was he in uniform? That's probably Walling. He was in uniform. Did you tell him about this car that you had seen about a week before? I do not recall. Did you tell any other police officers about the car you had seen? I am definitely sure I told the officer when I first saw it that he was out front. I ran across the street. I said, did you see that black car? Huh. I do not recall. Okay, did you ever tell any other police officers about the car you had seen? I am definitely sure I told the officer that when I first saw it, that he was out front. I ran across the street and said, did you see that black car that just pulled up? That is the car I have been seeing in front of my home. That one officer I did go into detail with. Okay, now you went. Did you go to the birthday party that was on February 14th, I guess, at the gravesite? No, I did not. And she doesn't go. He doesn't get her too much on cross with that. Okay, here's a little bit more. There it is. Have you ever seen that car before? I have on occasion. Okay. You know, it's a common car. It's a black car, small. Okay. But have you seen that particular car before, you think? I believe I have. Okay. Where was that? Driving by in our neighborhood. How long have you been seeing that in the neighborhood? I would say maybe as much as a month ahead of time. I did not see it daily. I saw it maybe 2 or 3 times just driving by, including that time just driving by. He would slow down. It was not uncommon for people as they went around a corner to slow down and look at the fountain. So I saw him doing that. Is this the same car you had seen about a month prior driving by the house? Yes. This is the first time you saw him stop in front of the house. Is that right? Yes, sir. Okay, so what did you do when you saw the car backed up and I parked my car and pulled directly behind him. I got out of my car and I was going to approach him and see if there was a problem, but he sped off very quickly. Did you get a license number? I did not. Did it concern you, the incident? Were you concerned? I was very concerned that someone would be sitting there staring. She came up with that on cross. At the Routier home. At the Routier home, yes. Did you tell anybody about this? Not directly. They were not home at the moment, and I mentioned to Darren earlier that it came to me later that evening. Darren, there was a car sitting in front of your house staring at your fountain. Okay, did he seem concerned at all? Yes, he did, but he, had talked about, and, well, he said, what were they doing? He wanted to know what kind of car it was. I told him it was a small black car. I don't know if it makes the cars. Well, if it's after the murder, right, she sees people cruising by. I mean, they're cruising by to check out the scene. People are curious. Yeah, okay. So they went on about the car. No. You have to take into consideration that she said it was there after the crime, right? And, that's just somebody looking at the crime scene. I can't see a murderer going near the house just for that. Like Karen said, hey, that's that car, right? I can't see them coming back towards the house. Why would he take that car back towards the house, right? Think about it like this. Karen says that he was pulled off to the side over here. Let's go back to it. Let's go back to it. Let me see where I'm at in my share. Let's go back to my big head out the way. Now, first she said that he was in between, by these, the first statement, right? She said he was parked right here in between these two boxes, between Nelda's house and her house. She said he was right here. The second time she said he was right here, but there was only one time. She said she pulled up behind him really slow, right? And I would assume that she would park here and Nelda and then would park there, right? So if he is sitting right in front of her walkway, right, and he would see her coming down the street and turning in, right, and coming towards her house, and then she stopped and got out. So he figured, oh shit, I'm in her spot. She pulled off. All right, but she said she had seen that car come by 3 or 4 times, but she also said she doesn't know makes and models of cars and she didn't get a plate. She wasn't so concerned she got a plate. Remember, the first time she said he was there, the second time she said he was here. But at either point, if I was, let's say I was just sitting there for any reason, you know, I wouldn't be, if I'm stalking and casing a house, right? First of all, there's no reason to look at the house. There's no reason. You know that you have to go in there and kill somebody, right? There's no reason to look at the house. There's no reason to be around there at all. None. And much less to pull over and sit. You make yourself a sitting duck for this person, this person, this person, this person, that person, these people, all to see you sitting here or here. It makes no sense to me. But anyways, let's go back to that.
And even Basha Javel, and there was quite a few people that were talking about that black car. Yeah, let's talk about it, Kelly. What do you want to talk about with it specifically? It is a very interesting subject matter.
I just leave Truthy alone. I don't mess with her.
All right, Corey. First off, Karen Neal wasn't the only one that's seen that black car. There were others. Also, relax. Okay? Just relax a little bit. Comment, but just chill a little bit.
Well, you know, the thing of it is I don't give any credit to that car, right? Because you're talking about that would just be pure stupidity. If they were the target, let's say Darren wanted people to break into his house, right? Which that whole sham is a sham. They would not, in my opinion, be in front of that house so much with a car that could identify them or the neighborhood in broad daylight. Nope. I don't believe that.
But okay. Let's see, Kelly. That's a great question. So we already know the Neals did. I know Basha Javel did.
Basha Javel said that there was a car that pulled up into the back driveway and then turned around and went out. And it's now he was discussing earlier that the neighborhood, you've only got one or two ways out, right? And that's up Linda Vista. So a lot of people would pull up into that driveway and then pull out. As a matter of fact, when we were in that neighborhood, that's what we did. I didn't want to go all the way down Darlie because I knew I'd end up having to come down back up Willowbrook, back out Linda Vista anyway. And that's the way we were going. They met, two people, and they said one of them had no shoes on. There's just no verification of that. But pulling up in that back alley and spinning out, that's not uncommon. Like I said, I did that myself.
All right, so we got two there.
Yeah, basically them didn't.
I know there was more. I can't exactly put a name to it. The others at this point.
But you did an intensive investigation to the point where you felt like you come public about this woman's innocence.
And I don't want to guess or speculate, but I do know for a fact that there were others that seen that car.
No, I think it was Nelda Watson and Karen Neal.
Driving suspiciously in the neighborhood.
How's it driving suspiciously? Pulling over to look at that house is not suspicious at all. Especially when it's got a $6,000 fountain out front.
But suspiciously meaning, stopping on the road and looking up at the Routier house just out of some strange coincidence. Now, BryanSt.John has said on numerous podcasts that he believed that was probably happened because of the big water fountain that they had in the front yard at the time. I find that to be unlikely.
Why? It's unlikely people would want to stop and look at that. How likely is it that they paid $6,000 to have it put in their yard because they wanted people to look at it? Look at us. Living large. Why is it unlikely?
Due to the fact.
Now, if you found it unlikely, but Karen Neal just said on the stand, as somebody who lives across the street, that it wasn't uncommon for people to slow down and look at that. Maybe the stopping was kind of weird, but I don't know why somebody would stop there. I wouldn't stop. I would just get my picture and move on.
The fact that I'm familiar with that neck of the woods, I think there was just bigger and better things to look at in that neighborhood. I mean, them houses in that neighborhood in 96 still are today. They're not quite as uppity as they were in 96, that's for sure. But I don't know that. Again, and that's speculation. We don't know somebody was sitting in front of there looking at that water fountain. There's also evidence that
it's speculation too, because we don't know if somebody's sitting there looking at that Darlie's house, right?
indicates people were looking in the windows of their garage the day before those boys were murdered.
No, they weren't looking in the windows. The garage was open. And somebody pulled up and pulled out.
Now, there was also, let me also say this, they were planning on having a garage sale and the Routier's meeting. And from what I understand, some, I've heard some people say, well, somebody might have been looking in the window because they might be having a garage sale. Let me tell you something. I've lived in Texas for quite a few years. In Texas, you go down and start looking in people's windows, you're going to get shot. Okay, that's a big no-no. I know people here in the Dallas area that actually have signs at the end of their driveway. If you turn around in my driveway, you will be shot. I don't even know how that's legal, to be honest with you, but I've seen it.
It's a stand your ground.
That don't fly with people real well down here. You don't just run up and go looking through somebody's window, especially in that kind of neighborhood. That was a high class, middle to high.
It's a stand your ground state. There was a guy that killed some people that was running from his neighbor's house. He got out of it. Stand your ground state.
High class neighborhood in 96. And, people just don't make the practice of going and looking in other people's windows in those type of neighborhoods. It's, in my opinion, that's unlikely.
There was no tag number in the car. I don't know why it's doing that. Hang on.
All right. Corey and 2 here again. Relax, please. I'm enjoying it. It's good to have the debate, but I can feel the hostility. Just call me Rich, Corey. I hate that name, Richard.
You know, he is a really nice guy, and he doesn't have a lot of conflict in him. I like Rich, but you know, I kind of hold people accountable.
Yeah, in the statements on the color of the car, the dark blue or black is pretty much what you get, but you get more of the black than the dark blue in the statements. Yeah, Corey, I have heard that a tag number was obtained, but I'm not going to go any further in that at this point.
There was no tag number obtained.
I mean, I don't even know who got it, who got the tag number. You know, I was just told that from a reliable source, mind you, that a tag number was gotten, but it's been kept under the rug because it's part of the investigation.
No tag number ever.
It's a very sealed up secret.
Come on, Rich. If it's sealed up, how would you know?
Oh, Corey, you can talk about the facts. You can talk about the facts all you want.
Straws.
Well, actually, yeah, we're bumping over an hour, which is where I like to keep the podcast. But we got a pretty good little discussion going on here. We can go for a little bit longer. Yeah, actually, the Chad Patterson's fingerprint was tested to J85 fingerprint, and it cleared Chad Patterson. It was not his fingerprint.
Now, Rich got that.
And I don't believe that Chad Patterson went into that house. And
Rich got that from my podcast that I had Cyrilda on. And she said, well, we got to hold to Chad Patterson's prints, and we compared him to 85J. No, he wasn't him. It wasn't him, she said. And my next question was, if you get a hold of Chad Patterson's print and compare it to 85J, then how come you can't have 85J ran or something? And she said, well, they wouldn't let us or something. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she gave some kind of excuse as to why they wouldn't let her.
Murder those boys, not at all, or assault Darlie. And don't get me wrong, Chadwick Patterson's got a pretty rocky past, but some strange stuff in there and so on and so forth. But no, I don't believe he killed those children. Chad Patterson, he was Jim Patterson, the one of the detectives in the case. It was his son, who also knew Darren. Yeah, Basha Javel had made the statement. As a matter of fact, if you listen to one of BryanSt.John's interviews with Basha Javel, she clearly states that in that particular interview.
It was surreal.
No names were put to the person. Not to my knowledge.
It was Cyrilda that said that, I think.
And I'm sure at this point, if there was, I would have found it. But then again, I could be wrong. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I have not. So I want to make this clear from the get-go. I haven't had the pleasure of talking with Basha Javel.
Pleasure.
I have found her, but I have not had any luck in having any communication with her. I would really like to do so. In my opinion, from what I have heard, I'd like to do this myself before I come up with a firm conclusion. But I believe she's a fairly valid character witness.
Now you say
I believe that a lot of the
now you say Beige is a valid character witness. You've changed that over the years. And Vanessa, I can tell you simply, when I supported her, I felt like that the fact that Darren asked multiple people, to come in his house, that he had something going on with that. My change came from the family telling lies behind the scenes and saying something different out front. And I felt like I got duped that way, and that's when I started to really look at the case. Was it a direct lie from Darlie's mom?
stuff that she has said is probably true. But again, I wasn't there. I can't prove that.
Beja told me that they had been arguing for a week, nonstop. She had been on the couch for a week because she said the baby would move in his crib and rock him. Her wedding ring was on the counter with the rest of her stuff. So I don't think he asked anybody. He said, when he said on the last defense that they put this piece of paper down in front of him and he signed it, he said, I did it for Darlie. And that's about the most honest as he. He did it in such a way that, because you can't get in trouble for asking people to break in your home unless they do. Why the police didn't really go and investigate that much, I mean, they should have. But they figured the case was closed, and they knew it was appeals time. 2002, 6 years later.
Yeah. Kelly, I'm just saying that Cirilla Routier and Darlie Key, and Darlie Key has told me this, that they actually obtained Chad Patterson's fingerprint and tested it again.
Okay, this doesn't like me doing it.
Against J85, and it come back not being Chad Patterson.
No, now that came from Cirilla. That came directly from Cirilla telling me that. So I don't know why Rich isn't giving me credit for that, but it's okay.
So I'm not saying, I'm not referring to an intruder on that, but there's a lot of claims out there that Chad Patterson went in and murdered those boys, and I don't believe it. And I don't want to speak for Cirilla Routier, and I don't want to speak for Darlie Key, but I'm willing to bet my life they would tell you they don't believe he did.
They did. Well, they can't. Let's see. Hang on just a second. Okay. Huh. I'm looking at something about Chad. All right. Let's see. Let's see. I don't see it. All right. Well, I'm gonna move away from this real quick. All right. I'm gonna do some more about Chad Patterson here soon.
Get it either. Well, here's the thing. That's a very good point you just made.
Well, see, the thing with Chad Patterson.
How do I want to explain this?
The thing with Chad Patterson is he was more cooperative than he could have been, because he actually went to Cooper's office and he was telling people that his dad wasn't following leads. He was making his dad look bad. His dad, he's a lieutenant now with the Rowlett Police Department. And I did a video of him. He looks a lot older, but he looks really sharp in his uniform. So, Chad and his dad, they said that Chad was convicted of a drive-by shooting. I'm going to look that up and go more into him, since they throw him out there so much. But I did try and talk to him. I talked to Donna. No. I forget the lady's name.
Every time when something, over the past 23, 24 years, and this is my opinion, would come up in the case, whether it come out favorable or not for Darlie Lynn, it goes to kind of what we're going through here tonight in the chat. And I think, sad to say, Darlie's running out of time. And I do not believe they want the wrong information getting out there, it getting all mixed up, construed, whether, it gets proven or disproven.
Here's another one.
I don't believe that it's just better off keeping quiet with it right now.
Then why
and letting the judicial system
look,
deal with it and the facts of it.
There's another one. He avoided twice from this lady, because this is a hard one to understand for him to answer. Let me get it to stop doing that. Stop. The J85 fingerprint, which is 85J, does that not prove there was an intruder, as it was tested against everyone to be known? And somebody trick questioned him. He's not answering that.
No, I totally agree with you two here again on the aspect that Chad Patterson did not do it. No, I do not believe he did. I never talked to him, but I have looked into him rather extensively. There's some weird stuff that's passed into stuff, but I do not believe that he did that.
He just hasn't passed with drugs and girls.
But again, what we were talking about tonight, and I talked to some people, some other supporters. A lot of them disagree with me, I must say, on my feelings and my thoughts. I'm not saying an intruder didn't come in there. What I'm saying is the evidence is limited to that cause. But I'm not saying it's impossible, because it's not impossible, but it's the chances are low.
You're not making a very good case for Darby.
So, I'm not going to, go off in one way or the other and, start speculating. The facts is the evidence is minimal at best, but not impossible.
Joe Douglas said, "We want to hear what evidence you claim to have to support the intruder theory, and you have said nothing to support that. Why?"
Wait, you can't believe I said what? You can bet the farm, folks. When I talk to other people that investigate the case, or discussions that I've had with Darlie Key, or discussions I've had with other important people on the case, you can bet your farm I go a whole lot deeper. What I am trying to prevent here is, if I am incorrect on a theory, I don't want to be putting it out there and not go under my name. But if I can prove something, or put something out there, or inform somebody of the correct information that we can prove, that's what I'm trying to do. Because there's way too much misinformation.
Well, look at you, Rick.
And Corey, I'm not saying for a minute that the system wasn't crooked, because it sure as hell was in her case. It was awful. I thought, first of all, I feel as though the Darlie Routier's defense team was a joke.
Well, let's see. I used to really go at Joe Douglas, and she's ridiculous. But she said that Dana and Darren were seen in a park days after the murders making out. I knew it was a waste of time to even bother with her. That's just somebody that just wants to be an asshole. Yeah, Rich hasn't really proven anything. That he proves that he goes with the flow. And I don't really want to down the man, but I'm just going on this behavior on this case.
At best.
I'm sure Rich would be somebody that I'd like to hang out with. I'm not as alpha as you think.
And you got to remember something about Greg Davis, and I know this for a fact about Greg Davis. He's a very dynamic speaker. And I like to use the phrase that he could talk the Virgin Mary in opposing for a centerfold.
Well, you're saying that Greg Davis possesses this type of power, but he doesn't. Let's say that there was an intruder that left a footprint or a piece of fiber from his shirt as he was climbing out, or a fingerprint that identifies somebody. Then how would Greg Davis make it look like Darlie did it? You tell me. Somebody seen a man running down the street. You tell me how Greg Davis would make it look like Darlie did it with that kind of evidence. He worked with what he had, and he had enough to convince people. He presented it. He wasn't trying to sell it. He presented it.
A very dynamic speaker. He is good at what he does, but he's evil, in my opinion.
Why, Rich? You haven't named anything. You just said he's evil. And from personal experience. What did he do in Darlie's case specifically? How did he dupe the people?
I didn't say to wait for the legal system to help her. I don't think those were my words. If they were, somebody correct me, please, because I don't believe that I said it that way.
You did.
There is minimal evidence of an intruder, in my opinion.
If there's any evidence of an intruder, Rich, any evidence, you shouldn't be sitting there saying that she's innocent, right?
Well, we went through that a little bit earlier in the podcast. So let's try it again. We talked about the cut screen. Okay. So if it was an inside job, and we're not talking about setting it up. I'm talking about the possible evidence of an intruder. We got a cut screen. There's something else I want to point out about that. Another reason why I believe that whoever killed those boys and assaulted Darlie.
You notice that?
If you don't know that.
Wow, I caught that. There's where your brain's at, Rich. From out of the mouth and off the tongue, there the heart is. Let me see this.
Another reason why I believe that whoever killed those boys and assaulted Darlie.
You notice how he said her name, but not theirs. Out of sight, out of mind. He could have said somebody came in there and stabbed those boys and that young lady, but he didn't. Darlie's name took priority to him. Devin and Damon, they remain nameless. They're a bifactor of why he's here. He's here for Darlie. You said it, not me.
If you don't know that house, you don't know that lot, you don't know that neighborhood, but let's cut it back to the house and inside of the house. That window where the screen was cut, okay, that went into a garage, which there was a door that the Routiers left unlocked that went into the utility.
That could have possibly been locked, and it would have been a waste of time to cut into that screen. That's why I always thought that the better spot would be in that corner, in that screen in the Roman room, because you had direct entrance into the house. People do know that, people who do these types of things, they do know that usually the garage has a door with a lock. And if you cut that screen, you get in there and find that door is locked, you just wasted your time.
Utility room. And then you could enter through the house that way. How the hell could a random intruder know to go through that window? How do they know that that door is going to be unlocked?
They don't. That's why it wasn't a random intruder. They don't. They're not going to take that chance. They want in and out. Easy cheesy, nice and breezy.
Now think about that for a minute. You're going into a house that you don't know in the middle of the night and in the dark. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That's right. Doesn't make a lot of sense. The intruder had so many deterrents: the big fence, the TV, the screen making noise, the cut screen, the two cat cages right there in front of it, the chance of the door being locked, the chance of the utility room door being locked.
Unless they knew its surroundings. They don't know here's the thing, for all they know, there's going to be an attack dog in there. Keep in mind that there are dog cages right by that cut screen at the window.
Another reason for the intruder to just decide to go on somewhere else.
You don't know what kind of dog's in there. It's liable to run up and tear your face off.
Thanks for that, Rich. Appreciate you. We can handle it, though. We got it.
Well, I'm going to catch up on some of these comments here. Well, to you again, you're talking about 85J will never do anything for Darlie. I hope you're wrong. I question it, but I hope you're wrong.
Now he's calling
85J is a 7.8
and the last episode of this, he was calling it J85.
point fingerprint. For those that know me well, know that I worked on the John Kennedy assassination for 20 some odd years.
You worked on it.
When I was very young, and I still work on the case. Actually, I've worked with some of the biggest and the best investigators on the case. I know Robert Groden very well.
You know Robert Groden? See, I didn't know that. Robert Groden's been around for a long time.
Tom Rosley, many others.
Tom Rosley, you know these people.
But we worked on a fingerprint. This is how I got acclimated with fingerprints so well. In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14 point match fingerprint. And that's a slam dunk if you could match it to somebody. And we were
let's see.
able to match that to a man by the name of Malcolm Wallace, which was actually kind of one of Lyndon Johnson's thugs, so to speak. But anyway,
Let's see. I'm looking. Okay, it says right here in 2003. In May 1998, Walt Brown called a press conference in Dallas to discuss a previously unidentified print at the sniper's nest in the school book depository. According to Brown, this fingerprint had now been identified as belonging to Wallace. So that came out of a book, a press conference by Walt Brown in 1998. So let's take a look at this. I want you guys to see this real quick. Whoever watches this video, I'm going to stop the sharing right there. And then I'm going to go back to StreamYards right here. And I'm going to get my big old head out of there. Share screen. Look at this. All it took is a quick little look. Let's see if it's showing up on the StreamYards screen pretty well. No, let me bring it all the way up then. All right, I can't get it to show any better than that. So what it says here, let me get it about Mac Wallace. Now, I'm going to find out who actually got them prints. In May 1998, Walt Brown called a press conference in Dallas to discuss the previously unidentified fingerprint at the sniper's nest in the Texas School Book Depository. According to Brown, this fingerprint had now been identified. I want to see who this press conference in Dallas. Let's see here. Let me go back up here. You got into fingerprints because you're the one that identified Mac Brown, huh? I'm not letting that slide, buddy. Okay, let's see what page we're on here. Let me stop and present a different one. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to see this. I'm getting this from Spartacus International Educational. Walt Brown has a PhD in history from the University of Notre Dame and teaches history at Rampino College in New Jersey. Okay. A Texas-based assassination research group has publicly named a man who believed to have left a previously unidentified fingerprint on a box making up the so-called sniper's nest on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. At a May 29 press conference in Dallas, researcher and author Walt Brown said that the fingerprints belonged to Malcolm E. Mac Wallace, a convicted killer with ties to Lyndon Johnson. The fingerprints have officially been identified since President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Brown presented data showing a 14-point match between Wallace's fingerprint card obtained from the Texas Department of Public Safety and the previously unidentified print, a copy of which was kept in the National Archives. A match was made by the match was made by A. Nathan Darby, an expert with certification of the International Association of Identifiers. The Texas researchers forwarded their findings to the Dallas Police Department, who passed it on to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and have also gone to the Assassination Records Review, the federal panel created to oversee the identification of records relating to the JFK assassination. Wow. Rich. Busted. You are busted, buddy. I'm copying that one. Let's go back to what he had to say here. Share that. Stop sharing that. Poor guy. Bless his heart. Busted. Busted. Caught him lying. Caught him lying. Rich. Let's go back to that again.
And Tom Rosley, many others. But we worked on a fingerprint. This is how I got acclimated with fingerprints so well. In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14-point match fingerprint. And that's a slam dunk if you could match it to somebody. And
they. He said we, then they, then now.
You're able to match that to a man by the name of Malcolm Wallace, which was actually kind of one of Lyndon Johnson's stuff. We worked on a fingerprint. This is how I got acclimated with fingerprints so well. In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14-point match fingerprint.
14 points.
And that's a slam dunk if you could match it to somebody. And we were able to match that to a man by the name of Malcolm Wallace. Which was.
Did you say we?
Was actually kind of one of Lyndon Johnson's thugs, so to speak. But anyway, during that time, we were the folks that I was working with on it, they kind of broke how fingerprints work and how they get the point matches and so on and so forth. Now, J85 is a 7 to 8 point fingerprint. Now, that's
85J.
A little bit below satisfactory.
Wow, Rich.
Doesn't mean it cannot be identified. It can be identified at a 7 or 8, but it's below satisfactory. They'd like to see bigger and better than that, you know, but it's not impossible to identify that fingerprint.
Wow. Caught him in a lie.
No, Kelly, I've never heard that they have proven that. There is speculation on that, but I've never seen no documentation that showed that J85 was Darlie's.
Wow.
It could have been, Corey. I'm not saying that it wasn't. What I'm saying is there's no documentation
Okay.
proving
I'm gonna,
that was
I'm gonna
Darlie's
stop.
fingerprint that I've ever seen. I got a
He ought to be
I
ashamed of
got
himself.
pretty good
Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing. And let me put my big mug here. So the thing of it is he said that we got those prints. And I found that there was one person that got that print. And it was presented to the FBI and it went on to the archives. So that's big news. Wow. Well, I need to get up off here. That's craziness. Piece of chicken grease, y'all.